Hello and welcome back to the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and today's episode is titled, You Don't Need a Man, You Need a Life. And this isn't, specifically geared towards people who are interested in men. It is, so when I say, men or whatever, just fill in, who you like. But this is going to be, it is kind of geared towards, the women out there and the gay men out there. So just, clarifying that, that's kind of who it is geared towards, but it's not solely just geared towards that. Hopefully the messages in this episode will resonate with, anyone who is listening. So, when I say men or whatever, just fill in the blank of who you're attracted to, or if you're not attracted to someone at all, then this episode probably isn't for you. To my asexual listeners out there. And I also want to say this episode is not going to be shitting on men, but I want to kind of focus, maybe a little bit, to be honest, but I really want to focus on, empowering self and, being in a place internally where you don't need a man, and that, and it's okay. And I got to clarify, it's okay to want a man. It's okay to want a woman or a romantic and intimate relationship. That's totally okay. This episode is not about preaching being single. This episode is about having, the self-worth, the self-confidence, and the self-esteem to not need someone else to feel whole or complete. So let's get into it. I also want to say tomorrow is the season 1 finale. And so I'm probably going to record, a handful of episodes today and release them. So, stay tuned, buckle up. Let's get into it. So you don't need a man, you need a life. So when I say this, I mean a relationship, a person, a man is not going to make you feel complete, and it will never be the thing that completes you. When we put our worth in the hands of another, we give them our power. We give them, if they don't message us back right away, or it takes a day or whatever for them to respond, and, we're constantly thinking about this person and what they're going to say, what could they be doing, maybe they're out with someone else. And I just want to say, it does not matter what this other person, whoever they are, is doing. And when we, find ourselves attracted to someone and into them, it's natural. For some people, it's very natural to, want to know what they're up to and what they're doing. But we got to understand that they're also their own individual person, and it's their life. And, unless they want to share it with us, share what they're doing, and they want to, forbear that information, it's really none of our business, and it's really not our concern. So the title, back to the, I'm going to try and keep it reined in so we don't get too off track. So you need a life. And what do I mean by a life? It means you got to have your own friends. It means you got to go do your own things, like your hobbies, go shopping. And, you got to have a life, and it may be a career or something of that nature. I'm not saying like a 9-to-5 per se, but a career, something that you do to make money. You want to be independent and self-reliant. And I've been very blessed with an amazing woman who I call Nan, my grandmother. And, she herself is a very independent person, and she always has been. And thankfully, this is something that, one of the many things she has taught me while I was growing up is to not be dependent on another person to feed yourself, to pay your rent, etc., etc., etc. Because if you get into a position where, someone's, and, I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but when you get into a position where someone is paying to feed you and paying to house you and all of that. You're giving them a whole lot of your sovereignty over to them, because at any point, if they decide to, they can, cut off the funding. And that's when you walk into the territory of financial abuse. And that means that someone's controlling your finances. Maybe they have, they give you a debit card and they put a little bit of money, or they don't give you any money at all, and they go and buy things for you, and they don't allow you to touch a penny ever. And so, that's part of the, being self-reliant and independent. Because, you don't want to get into a position where, someone has the say-so if they choose to leave you out in the cold and on the streets or hungry. You understand? And so I also want to add onto that independence piece is that be very wary of hyper independence. The feeling that you don't need anybody, or the feeling that you just need this one person in your life. No, human beings are social creatures. We are community driven. And I also want to say, in terms of friendships, in my experience, they give you so much more that, an intimate and romantic relationship probably never could. And I don't mean to say that a romantic, intimate partnership with another person can't be, started off as friends, or you are friends and then and it goes a bit deeper, or you can't be friends with your partner. But, just platonic friendship is something incredibly special, because a platonic friendship, a healthy one, is one where two people come together, and they, based on the sole fact that they enjoy each other's company. They have fun together. They talk about everything, There's something incredibly unique and special when you find your people, or when you find your best friend. And that's something that, an intimate and romantic partnership likely can't fully give you, because, relationships, like a very basic level, are transactional. I give love, I get love back. They give me love, I give love back, etc., etc., etc. And so, but a platonic friendship are special because it's not necessarily transactional. Like you're together, you give good vibes, you laugh, you share things together, I buy this, you buy that, that kind of thing. But there's really no, self-vested, deeper, reasons why you become friends with someone, unless you're like, an unhealthy person. But when I am around someone and I'm their friend, I don't expect anything from them, and they don't expect anything from me when it's, a real healthy friendship. And all we want from each other is to have a good time, maybe to talk and to vent and these sorts of things that friends typically do. But it's not like it's a transaction where, we have sex, or, you take me on dates, or I take you out on a date. That's why friendships are special, because there's no sexual transaction and there's no financial transaction per se or necessarily. But with a romantic relationship, the stakes are a bit higher. The relationship between two souls who come into a romantic and intimate connection is deeper. But we can't forget about friendship outside of the relationship, and having your own group of friends that you go and hang out with. And the reason why it's called, you don't need a man, you need a life, is because I have heard so many stories, and I've experienced people, not just women, but especially women in my own experience, where they get so caught up and involved in this one man, and it's the ride or die, and then the man is going out and cheating and doesn't take the relationship seriously, and then that sort of thing. And so it breaks my heart when one of my women friends gets so caught up in this person who doesn't respect them, doesn't respect the relationship, and could care less if it, went either way, if they stayed together there or if they broke up. And it breaks my heart that they're so that some of these people are so self-sacrificing when it comes to relationships that they lose themselves and they lose their friends. Maybe not because of any particular reason why, other than the fact that they just spend so much time with this person, or they're just too invested in this person, or when you do hang out with them, it's just about that person, or they're texting on their phone. And I've seen this with, like, not just people I know, but I'll be in passing or hanging out with acquaintances at an event or something, and they're texting their partner, or their partner is texting them and is being very controlling and overbearing. And if I was in that relationship, it would be crossing boundaries. A man, let me just say this, a man is not going to tell me who I can't hang out with. I'm obviously, if we agreed to set thing, and and I still respect the relationship, which it takes a lot for me to not respect a relationship like that. But a man is not going to tell me what the fuck to do, ever. You understand? There's not going to be, no, you can't go hang out at that person's house at the after party. There's not going to be any, no, you can't wear that. Like, I'm going to wear what I want. I'm going to go hang out with who I want. And you're not going to tell me what I can or cannot do. Why? Because I pay for my life. I'm the one living my life, and I can go hang out with who I want. And that's not to say that I'm going to go hang out with an ex or, that kind of thing. But some of these men, and it is men for the most part, are controlling to the point where it's insane. Like, how are you telling your girl that she can't go and hang out with this person, or they can't hang out around any men, and so on and so on? Like, where's the trust with your partner? Because without trust, there is not a real relationship. If a man feels like he has to control you in order to feel safe and secure, then that's not a real relationship. He's got you on a chain, and he wants you home at 10, and you can't go home with anybody, you can't get a ride, you have to take the Uber, and you got to go straight to his place or back to your house. And it's like, hold up, like, who made you warden of the fucking prison? Who made you warden of the fucking gulag? You know what I'm saying? You don't need a man, you need a life. And so I want to add into, having a real, healthy relationship with another soul, with another person, is very special as well. And I think, it's a part of human nature for a vast majority of people, not everyone, to want a relationship. And it's okay to want one, but when you get in a place, or you are in a place where you feel like you need another person, and you would die for this other person, which I'm not saying ride or dies are real, but that kind of connection is developed over a period of time, not someone you just met. But a relationship, an intimate one, is special. And there is things that you get out of an intimate relationship that you just can't get out of a platonic one. But I really want to stress that, finding the right one or finding your soulmate, these are overrated things. I want a relationship like that where, deep and healthy, and, we're connected, and we understand each other at a deep, deep level. But I also got a life. I got a business to run. I gotta fucking, hustle every day. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta get my walks in. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. I'm gonna go do my recovery. I got a life. And if someone isn't, I don't believe in the concept of, another person making me whole. I am a whole and complete person on my own. And you are too, listener. You are too. And I just want to smash this concept that you need a man, or you need a partner, or you need a woman, or you need whatever. You really don't. And especially if you're a younger person, like in your teenager years, or in your 20s, and even in your 30s. I mean, 30s is kind of around when you want, at least in my opinion, I would want to start settling down around, my 30s. But if you're in your 20s, you're still young, you're still getting your shit together and going to get your education, or working a job, or being an entrepreneur. You have a life that you need to build. You need to set yourself up for success. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes, an intimate partner can become a hindrance in your ability to create a life that is secure and one that you want to live. Especially if it's with a toxic or unhealthy person, or maybe you're the toxic and unhealthy one. And I'm sure, most people have been the unhealthy, toxic person, and I'm sure everyone on earth has experienced an unhealthy and toxic person as well. And so to that I say, I don't recommend getting in a relationship. If you're newly sober, wait at least a year before you even really think about getting into a relationship. And B, if you are unhealthy mentally and psychologically, I go by this. If I am unhealthy, I'm going to attract unhealthy relationships. And even if it was with a healthy person, being unhealthy, whether it's me or them, is going to create an unhealthy relationship. It's 1 + 1 = 2. If you have 2 healthy people, you're going to get a healthy relationship. If you have 1 unhealthy person plus a healthy person, it's going to turn into an unhealthy relationship. If you have 2 unhealthy people, that's just a recipe for unhealthiness. And so I really recommend becoming so self-fulfilled in your self-love and your self-gratitude and acceptance, and so full of life and good connections, that you attract something that is of that will reflect that state of being. I haven't seriously dated anybody in about 4 years now. I've had on and off relationships, nothing too deep, nothing too crazy, but I used to really want one. I just really wanted to rush into a deep relationship and connection with a man or a woman. And I'm actually so grateful that I've been single, because I've been getting to know myself, especially being sober. I think it's 15 months and 8 days today at the time of this recording, and I really wouldn't trade it for anything less than I deserve. And before, I was so self-sacrificing for another person, and I didn't have self-esteem whatsoever. I'm still kind of working on it. Getting to the place where I think or know what I deserve, and being patient, and being willing to wait for the proper person, right? But I am actually so grateful to be single. There's people my age, I'm 21, so I have people that I know who are in serious long-term relationships, or who have kids already, and it's and they got all this responsibility, and they got to deal with this and that, and check in with their partner. Oh, I can't do that because my partner wants me to stay in tonight. And I was like, brother, sister, you guys are together 24/7, 365. I think you can go a couple hours without each other. Being single and a male and bisexual and ambitious, I got the most amount of freedom that you could probably attain on earth. I'm young, I got ambition, and I'm single, and I don't have kids. Not to flex, but it's a bit of a flex. I have the freedom to really do whatever I want with love and light by the grace of God. And it's just freedom. What other 21-year-old in a serious relationship, or they have kids, can, go for, I just went on a 4-hour walk because I wanted to. And I just listened to music, and I took some pictures and some videos, plug my Instagram, kyleantoine.official. And, I'm not getting spam messaged or, called, where are you? Come home, blah, 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 blah. And, and for a bit, and this is kind of also a newfound security within myself. And this has occurred in the last few months. Because I will admit, I do want a healthy and loving relationship, a secure relationship. And also they got to drive and be financially secure too. One of us has to drive. I don't got my N yet, we both can't be licenseless. And, to continue, I do want a relationship, right? But I don't have the feeling anymore that I need one, that, if I see a hot guy, that I'm head over heels tripping myself over this, dude, because that's really all they are. It's a guy. There's billions of guys out there in the world. You're going to find the right one when it's time. And I do think that, real, serious, healthy relationships are not, you don't go out and look for them. They come and find you through a set of circumstances. And that's how, in my experience, relationships have always gone. When I go out and seek, I don't find, specifically in the realm of relationships. Even friends that I've met it's always been through a set of circumstances that I didn't consciously go and do. They've always just kind of happened and come about. Do you ever notice, even with your closest and your bestest of friends, you kind of forget how you met, right? And it's because it just happened. I don't know, that's the best way I can explain it. And in terms of romantic and intimate relationships, I really love the Japanese way of thinking about it. And that is, we all have, a red string wrapped around our finger, and on the other end of it is our soulmate. And it doesn't matter, where in the world you are, what kind of circumstances you're going through, you will end up with this person because you have the red string attached to your finger. And I also want to smash the concept that there's only one person in the world for me out of 8 billion plus people on the planet. And I just want to say, that is not true, and it's not true in my experience. I'm gonna love you forever. It's motherfucker, forever is a long ass time. It's forever. I can't promise someone I'm gonna love them forever. I'm gonna love you while we're together. I'm not gonna probably ever hate you, but forever is eternity. Eternity is a long ass time. So never say that it's binding. It's a little spell. I won't touch too much on that aspect of but never say I love you forever. Just put I love you. I love you right now. At least that's how I look at it. But you don't need a man. You need a life. And when you have a life that's so fulfilled, when you get connected, and if you have a good relationship with your family, hang out with your family. And if you have, healthy, good friends, hang out with your friends. If you have things that you love to do, go for a walk, take the dog out, go to the library, read some books, watch some YouTube, go to the movie theater. And I will say, I do want, I love going to the movie theater, but I'm damn, I wish someone was holding me, or I was holding somebody, So I do get the intimate and the physical connection aspect 100%. I've been touch starved, and I've kind of gotten through it now, but I had a body pillow, and just because and it wasn't even because I was new, but I just missed the sense of holding someone while we slept, and I do miss that. So I do get why physical connection is so important. But so there's some friends who do cuddle platonically, who do do things like that platonically. But you got to find the right friend. and that's not for every friend either. But take yourself out on a date. If you don't have a Valentine's at the time of recording has been gone for 2 months now. But next Valentine's Day, if you're still single, get yourself some flowers, get yourself a card. And it sounds a bit cheesy, but take yourself out on a date, and because there's going to come a point, if this is something that you feel in like your soul that you really want, and you feel it's going to happen at some point, like, get to know yourself, hang out with yourself, enjoy yourself. How is someone supposed to get to know you if you don't even know yourself? And I don't feel like you ever fully 100% know who you are, but you definitely get to about 95%. I think that, the self is, limitless, and there's so much to create and explore within ourselves, and, getting to know who we are is such an enjoying process. But you got to be present, and you got to be alone sometimes. Not forever, but sometimes you do got to have some time alone to not lose yourself in the world and in your mind and in media and things like this, right? It's so important to know yourself to the best of your ability, and to the extent that you can't. I'm even though I have 15 months and some days, I'm just getting to know myself. I'm just getting to, for a while, there were periods of times where I would walk into, Dollarama or a 7-Eleven, and I just didn't know what I liked anymore. I have become so invested in others that I forgot my favorite chocolate bar. I didn't even know if I still liked chocolate, that kind of thing. I'm like, I want chocolate, but what do I want? Now I can walk in, I'm like, hey, I know what I like, I know what I want. Because I've had the opportunity and the time to get to know that part of myself. What do I like to eat? That's very important to know, because if you're out with your friends, or if you're by yourself and you want to get something to eat, you got to know what you like in order to narrow down your options. Because there's, especially where I live, there's so many places to eat. And when how can you expect someone to have fun around you if you don't have fun by yourself? How can you expect, you get what I'm getting at? You got to have it within first, to be able to share it with others. You gotta, especially, and when I say unhealthy, I mean you don't love yourself. That's unhealthy. You don't take care of yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. That's unhealthy. When you love yourself, that opens up the opportunity to love another person intimately and romantically. We give our friends a lot of grace, and we forbear a lot with our friends because we like the person, we like their personality, and platonically too, right? And so we forbear a lot because when we like something, we forbear it. We're willing to pay a higher price to keep it in our lives. And that's also true with people you love, but I don't hang around people I don't like. If I don't like you, I'm not going to, stick around too long, if at all. If I love you, I can love and, you can love someone and not like them, right? And so with romantic partners, it's very hard to, after that relationship ends, to stay friends or whatever, because you still love that person, but you don't like them anymore. So people tend not to be around people they don't like. And if you are around people you don't like, that's unhealthy. And you don't need a man, you need a life. And, there's so much more to life than being in a relationship. And that's okay to be in one. It's okay to want one. But it's not okay to neglect yourself and your needs. Emotional, mental, physical, spiritual. And it's not okay to neglect your friends, and it's not okay to neglect your family if you have a healthy relationship with your family. If you don't, that's another thing. And it's not okay to neglect your life and your responsibilities. And it's in your hands, and it's your responsibility to have a life worth living. And if you don't, that's on you. If you lose yourself in another person, especially after listening to things like these, it's on you. I've met people women that I don't even know, who, are wondering if they should leave the relationship they're in. And it's if you have to ask yourself that question, most likely it's a yes. And people, I think this is kind of true for me, where I like the idea of being in a relationship more than I think I would actually enjoy being in the relationship. You know, I do want the intimacy, and I do want to hang out with a person and, you know, be partners in crime, not actual crime, hopefully by the grace of God. But, and I do want, you know, to sleep in someone's arms at night and to, you know, get a place together and get a dog and perhaps some kids later down the line. But I kind of forgot where I was going with that. I got carried away a little bit. But I think you get the point. And the point is this. There is so much more to life than being in a relationship with someone. And that is not to say that if you are in a relationship or are looking to get into one, that relationship doesn't matter, because when you do enter a relationship like that, that becomes one of your main priorities. You know, that's your person. Like, not yours as in you own them, but, you know, you guys made a commitment or a decision to, you know, stick together, and, you know, that becomes a very big and important part of your life. And I'm just warning, or, you know, trying to give people a heads up not to completely lose yourself in a relationship. And a healthy partner isn't going to allow you to do that. You know, a healthy person is going to have their own life too, and their own friends that they go hang out with, and their own hobbies that they go do by themselves sometimes. And they're not going to want you to constantly be checking in 24/7, 365, and be with them 24/7, 365. You know, I'm not saying I've been in past the healthiest person ever, but I've learned a lot about relationships and what healthy ones look like. And like, I've had someone like a few years ago, you know, ask me, and well, they told me, and they were male and they were gay, but they were telling me that they want a relationship and they want to date somebody. And, you know, at the time we were in like this shelter. This is when I was like homeless on the streets by choice back in 2023. And I told them, I was like, yeah, that's okay. That's totally cool. But, you know, we're kind of like, look where we are. We're not really in like the best place to find a relationship right now. And you probably wouldn't want to date someone that's here either. And I'm not saying that people who are homeless don't deserve that kind of connection. But if you're wanting a real sustainable, healthy relationship, you're not going to find it in you know, people's in the times of, you know, people are struggling the most in their life. And that's an important piece of advice. You don't want to, like, you know, the homeless shelter or, you know, recovery meetings and things like that of that nature is not the best place to, you know, find your next partner. They're not dating grounds. These are places where people are trying to get back on their feet and are trying to be of service to, you know, the people to help people get back on their feet as well. So these aren't the best places to go, you know, looking to date somebody. But he insisted he wanted a relationship, and so I was like, okay, well, if you want a relationship, you know, you got to define what it is that you want, and you also got to become, you know, a person who, you know, is of the same level of what you're looking for, is essentially what I told him. And so, you know, if you want a healthy person, you got to become one. You got to be a healthy person. If you want a loving person, you got to be a loving person, and you got to love yourself. If you want things like you know, like attracts like, and if you're, you know, in a homeless shelter, and like you, and also the other thing about this person was that I think they were a virgin, and the only reason I'm detailing this because it's, you know, pertinent or important to, you know, my message. You won't know who this person is. I don't talk to them anymore or anything, but it's important because it gives a message. And so they wanted to have sex with a hot person, and there was a handful of people that they were interested in. And, I told him, I'm like, okay, well, you say you want a relationship, but like you really want, to hook up with a hot person. I'm like, why don't you just download Grindr and like hook up with someone there? And they're like, no, like I want a relationship. And I'm like, okay, like whatever. So he takes a big interest in this one guy who goes to a university, and he even brought me along one night because I'm like, he's like, do you want to come with me? And I'm like, sure, why not? So we went, and he doesn't even go to that university. Like, he goes to a different one, and it's online. And so I started feeling like, I'm like, I don't belong here. Like, these people are really fucking smart. Like, it was trivia. And I'm like, these people are really smart. Like, I didn't know any of the answers to the trivia. Like, it was like, like you would have to have, some university experience to even begin thinking about the answer to some of these questions. And so anyways, I meet the person he's interested in. He hadn't said anything to this person. And I think a few nights before, they went out to like, a trivia night, or bingo night, something like that at a restaurant together. And so, he's, telling me about this. And I had told him multiple times that, become friends with the person first. And if it happens to be that they like you too, and it works out that way, then get into the relationship. But be friends with the person first. And this is important advice. I'd rather be friends with someone than, ruin it because you can, and that's the reality of it, you can ruin a relationship if you divulge that you want something more intimate. And it's been in my experience where I have done this before, and I'm like, fuck, like I do want to hang out with them as friends, but it's kind of already past that point. And so I gave him that warning, like, maybe just be friends with him, get to know him, because all he really wanted was sex. And that's the truth of it, the matter. He just wanted to fuck. And that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm not a sex shamer. I love sex. I think sex is, positive. I'm a sex positive person. But if you're just going after somebody because you want sex, like, I don't think he wanted to admit it, but I think he wanted a relationship with these people, not because he wanted to be a loving and caring person, or a boyfriend, but he wanted the control. He wanted the exclusive access to these people, because that's when you take away all of the bullshit. That's what he wanted, was sex, and that's totally okay. But be upfront about it. And that's why I told him to go download Grindr. But he didn't want to hook up with random people, and I'm like, these are like, the people that you're interested in are random people to you. So like, really, what's the difference? But anyways, he ended up telling the boy from the university that he liked him, and he wanted to start dating, essentially, is what he was saying. And this person had no clue, and he thought they were just hanging out as friends and having a good time. But I think he said something like, I'm straight, and also I don't want to be in a relationship with you, kind of thing. And the person who, not the university guy, but my friend at the time, got mad at me for that outcome. And I'm like, dude, I literally told you. And so like, it was very irritating to have someone, and I told him, like, it got to a point even before that happened that I was just like, over it. I did not care. I did not give a fuck, because I would tell him things, some pretty awesome advice about relationships and how to manifest one and how to attract one, right? And he just completely ignored me and only heard what he wanted to hear. And he would update me, and I'm like, okay, I get the ick just thinking about it, him and the whole situation. But it's like, dude, you just ruined a friendship with someone who seemed pretty awesome. All because you were thinking with your dick, and you couldn't accept a friendship. You you expected something more, and when it didn't work out, you got mad at me. I was like, dude, that's backwards. That's bizarre behavior. And I guess the message and the lesson in the story is, sometimes it's just better to be friends with people, and oftentimes, being friends is just the better way with certain people. Like, you're not meant to date every attractive person to you. Like, people you find attractive, like, you're not meant to date or hook up with every single one. And, it's okay to have hot friends. It's okay to, you get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying. I don't want to go in the loop. I want to keep it, on track and, as simple as it can get. Because relationships are complicated sometimes. Maybe not complicated, but they're very intricate. And they're very, very delicate. And, if you have friends who, share the same sentiment, like, listen to your friends, your good, healthy friends who do want the best for you, truly, because there are, some friends who are vindictive or envious of you, and they will, give you advice or stuff, and they will, to throw you off your path, or to to try and trip you up, essentially. And so, yeah, you don't need a man, you need a life. And when you have a fulfilling life, you're not going to settle for less than what you deserve. If you don't have a life and you're not surrounded by good people, with family and friends, and you're not working on your mental health through counseling or therapy if needed, and you're not doing your spiritual practices, I'm not saying go to church if you don't want to, but I'm saying, like, getting in touch with your soul and meditating and, listening to music, dancing, and doing things on your own and enjoying yourself while doing it, you're going to settle for someone who is a piece of shit. Our relationships match our self-esteem. I'm not going, if someone, treats me like shit, I don't give a fuck what they have or who they are. It's done. I'm done. I have options, and I have the freedom, the internal freedom to, choose who I allow into my space and into my life. And I'm not going to settle for some piece of shit fuckboy or whatever. Not just intimate relationships, but friendships too. Like, I'm not going to be around a negative Nancy. I'm not going to be around envious or jealous or insecure people whatsoever. I'm not saying you can't have, feelings sometimes that I don't look good today, or, things like that. But, deeply rooted insecurity is a danger to you. If you're internally deeply jealous or envious of someone, that brings out the worst in people. Not just to yourself, but with others. And so when I find people who, come across my path, who are deeply seated have deeply seated insecurity, I don't hang around too long, because it's like, oh my goodness, I can't deal with it. I want someone who's at least has, half confidence in themselves, who is grateful for their life and what they got. And, because, envy is the spark of hatred. And hatred is a fire that burns bright. And anything can fuel hatred. When you're in a place of envy and that turns into hatred for someone, anything they do, it just adds fuel to the fire. And that fire burns down anything it touches. So I'm very wary when it comes to, friendships. Like, and I can vibe it out pretty well. Some people aren't meant to be my friend. Some people are just acquaintances. Some people are just people I see in passing. I don't even really have a best friend at the moment, because I'm not, having a best friend is something that's, very, very deep and very special. And, not everyone can just be my best friend. And that's the opportunity that I have with, my self-esteem. Now, I don't want to ramble in loops, so I'm going to try and tie it up really nicely. You don't need a man. You need a life that's fulfilling on its own. And then when you have the self-love and you have the self-esteem and the self-confidence and the humility and the gratitude for yourself and your life outside of any relationship or friendship or partnership or whatever, then the right people will come across your path. And then you come from a place of not neediness or insecurity, but from a place of wanting to build a life with someone that's secure, that's healthy, and has a solid foundation. You don't need a man, you need a life. You can want a man, you can want a partnership, that's fine. But to feel like you need it is something else that is, dangerous territory to be in. And sometimes being single is just the right thing to do for a period of time. Sometimes we need to be alone. And, maybe we need to get a bit healthier mentally or spiritually. Maybe we need to get more in tune with our emotions. And maybe we do need to seek a counselor. Or maybe we do need, to do self-care. You got to care about you. You got to make sure that you are good before you enter a relationship with someone. Because if you do enter a relationship, you could be in a relationship with the best person alive, the healthiest person alive. And if you yourself are not in a good, healthy, awesome place internally inside, you're going to fucking ruin it. And that's, part of the story, part of the message of the story I just told about my old friend. He ruined something, a friendship. You could have had an awesome friend who was smart and at university and was willing to go out with him as platonically out for trivia night. You know how rare that is to have someone who wants you to come out and hang out with them and be social and stuff at a restaurant doing trivia night. Like at least in at university it's probably really easy to find people like that, but just out in the world it can be difficult to find friends, and that's a very common thing. And so you got to learn, and that this is something that you got to learn to enjoy your own company. You got to learn to enjoy the solitude, because there may come a time where you do enter a very serious and deep intimate relationship with someone, and you're not going to have as much time as you do now to spend time with yourself and to do what you enjoy. And partly I think the majority of that is healthy and is awesome to experience, but never lose yourself. Never lose sight of what you want out of life. Always keep your dreams alive and keep yourself and your heart alive, and be open and be ready and get into a healthy place if you're not already. And I just want to say God bless you, and thank you for listening. I hope this hit home. I hope this was on par with what I want the messages to be from this. And I hope you found a new self-freedom, a new perspective on relationships and yourself. And I hope you take care of yourself. And I wish you the best in all your affairs. And I will catch you on the next episode. And this has been the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Colin Antoine. Season finale drops tomorrow on the 15th. It's going to be a banger. I already know what it's going to be. I might do a video, but this has been me. Make sure you go follow all of the Late Night Cool Down and all of my personal social media accounts. Give me a like, give me a follow, give me a share if you resonate with what I have to say. It means the world to me. And yeah, we're actually going to end it here. So thank you.